Time like a stream carries our burdens away. Never despair, joys everywhere. Love can befriend you today. Free from all care, like birds of the air, soar above griefs and worries, seek joy and be gay. Often on earth, things of great worth, worthy ambitions defy. Sometimes a friend helps us ascend up from life's cares to the sky. Love is a star, though shining afar. It can guide us and help us toward light to draw nigh. Love is a star, though shining afar. It can guide us and help us toward light to draw nigh.
Life is a Dream is, of course, a perennial favorite within Ananda music, so much so that, yes, we did use it in the song, or in the movie for Finding Happiness that's about Ananda itself. Let's pause that there. Got another recording. Anyway, the song is very much about friendship, and not really about the interpersonal friendship that we find in human relationships, but really about divine friendship. It's really a message that's... its message is to say, seek God, or seek friendship not in mere people, but in God above all, and thus God coming through those people. The song provides a message of relaxation, you might say, namely relaxation into the flow of life rather than trying to take things too seriously, which is why I assign the quality of earnestness to this song, one that it can help overcome. The song itself is written in a time signature that's very reminiscent of a lot of classical waltzes, such as the well-known piece On the Beautiful Blue Danube. And it's that kind of flow. It's the dum bum 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 bum. It's that kind of, I think it's like a 3/4 time signature. And that underscores that feeling of a flow and of a dance, as opposed to time signatures that, like in the Battle Hymn of the Republic or other martial kind of songs that are made for marching, those time signatures encourage a much more of a feeling of, an affirmative or deterministic kind of affirmation or martial energy, and that gives you less of the flow as the waltz time signature does. So that helps with the feeling of the song as well. Now, very helpful for this sense of relaxation is, of course, friendship. As the song says in one of its most memorable lines, sometimes a friend helps us ascend up from life's cares to the sky. A true friend is not one that commiserates with us. That word commiserate, the root of it is co-misery. We don't really need friends to come and just wallow in our self-pity and wallow in our sorrow for a while. We want friends that can lift us out of those cares, out of the worry and out of the anxiety. And we can hear this song, in fact, as if somebody's singing it to us, primarily the Divine Mother or God singing it to us to comfort us and soothe us out of our worries and out of our anxieties and out of our cares, all the kinds of qualities, again, that this song helps release. We can also hear the song as if it's being sung from within, rather than necessarily coming from without. Have it come from within, from the spine and from the spinal centers. The harmonies in this choral version, which range from beautiful deep bass notes to somewhat high soprano notes, there's quite a range in there, really brings energy to the whole spine in the different chakras. And the purpose of that is to help awaken all of those chakras and bring the energy upwards toward the star or the light that are they're in the last line, suggesting here this focus at the spiritual eye, as I'll come back to in a little bit. Now, more distinctly, the song, in addition to earnestness, also helps with the feeling of heaviness, or that feeling of being burdened. As the song says, life is a dream, time like a stream carries our burdens away. Never despair, joys everywhere. Now that stream, the song is reminding us that all of creation is God's dream, here for our enjoyment, not for our pain and suffering and feeling burdened. And time, which is part of that dream, flows invariably forward and helps to diminish the energy and the intensities of whatever our struggles happen to be. It's the same imagery that we have, again, in classical waltzes like the Blue Danube, which is very flowing. But in a previous session of these antidotes, I talked about the song, Desdemona's song, which has the line from Shakespeare, "The fresh streams ran by her and murmured her moans." And that fresh streams running by, the time like a stream, or another song, "Life flows on like a river," that Swami Kriyananda wrote. All of those are saying that really no matter how bad or how painful the situation might be, the inevitable change brought about by the passage of time is really a blessing, again, because it diminishes the energy of those struggles. Now, the passing of burdens like this applies not only to what we normally feel of as the heaviness of sorrow and sadness and those kinds of things, but it should also apply to our emotional highs, which, according to the law of duality, the emotional excitement and the emotional highs are invariably followed by the sorrows. And that's really, if we look at it, where those sorrows come from is because we've been going on that emotional roller coaster, up and down, up and down, up and down. And so we can understand that those emotional highs, just like the emotional lows, are also a burden. Because again, the more we experience those emotional highs, we tend to try to cling to them, right? And we start cultivating and being driven by the desire time and time again to try to recreate those experiences and those thrills. And you can see this in all kinds of commercial advertising where the advertising tries to hook you with some experience, some emotional excitement that you once had, and then tries to get you to want to relive that emotional excitement, and of course then buy the products, or say a vacation to Disneyland, which is often used in television advertising especially as this thing that really builds up the emotion. But truly, that drive to recreate those emotional highs is itself a deep burden, especially if we then fail to recreate those joys, and then we can fall into despair and a sense of loss. And really, the lost emotional joys can be even more devastating than the sorrow. So easing that burden, easing that potential despair is again something that this song does. Now, the answer that the song is providing here is to say, seek satisfaction as the yogi does by neither trying to rid yourself of pains nor by trying to recreate all those past emotional joys. Instead, it's saying, never despair, joys everywhere, right now in the present moment. And then it has this curious line, love can befriend you today. Now, love here really, is it referring to just the emotion or like love in a relationship? It really can't be, because the act of befriending, it needs a conscious agent, right? Just an emotion can't befriend anything because it doesn't have that consciousness in it. So love here must be referring to a consciousness of some kind, namely God's consciousness and God's love. So in this song, of course, which is meant for very general consumption, it doesn't use the word God, but it uses the word love instead to really help magnetize that sense of God's presence, that sense of God's love without saying it. Because even people who declare themselves atheists can agree that love is indeed important. So really the song is saying that God is always there as an eternal friend to help you through every moment and every part of life to find that ever-present joy within you. And by the very act of opening yourself to that love and to that joy, you find that you can then easily release so many troubles in life, right? It says, free from all care, like birds on the air, soar above griefs and worries, seek joy and be gay. It's like that often quoted line from the Bhagavad Gita where Krishna says that even a little practice of this inward religion will free one from dire fears and colossal sufferings. That inward religion, you might say, is that being receptive and open to God's love and that joy, whether it involves a distinct technique of meditation or not. Because really meditation itself in many ways is the art of holding oneself open to God, holding oneself open to that higher consciousness, and thus relaxing into the divine presence, relaxing into the flow of life, to soar above those griefs and worries. And in that elevated state of consciousness, you can then choose to be happy all the time, right? It's very simple mathematics when you get down to it. You can just choose to be happy when you have that inner presence, that inner joy. Oftentimes when we think of our so-called burdens, it's natural to think of the heart and the heart chakra here. You know, we speak of having a heavy heart, for example. We don't speak of having a heavy throat or a heavy medulla. We don't use those terms. Now, we do have a sense of sinking feelings in the heart and sinking feelings in the gut, right? That sort of in words that indicate energy going downward in the lower spine. And of course, our body posture often betrays that kind of downward energy. But the point here is that when we think of burdens, it's not necessarily just the heart, it's really all the spinal centers, because every chakra, when it has energy that's sinking or dissipating outwardly in some way, is burdensome. And so the message in the first verse of this song is really one to each of those centers, right? And we often think of the center of something as its heart. So it's saying that the energy of each chakra throughout the entire spine, as the song resonates with, helps the energy turn upwards toward God through that deliberate choice to be happy amidst all circumstances, and then again to soar above whatever the particular griefs and worries are of those individual centers. And as a result, one's entire consciousness is lightened. Now the second verse begins with a challenge to what we might call the usual worldly value system. It says, often on earth things of great worth worldly ambitions defy. And there's a lot going on here. The earth here is obviously relation to our planet, but also can collectively refer to all of our spinal centers, because the earth is a word that can associate with the body, and the spine being the center of that. And in this inward sense, then, the line is saying that no matter how, the world usually judges outward achievements as successes and failures, but that's not often what matters to the spirit or what matters to the spine, because things that often have a seemingly no outward importance whatsoever, like the simple act of being kind to a stranger or just sharing a smile or petting a dog, for example, there's no real impact on the world, you might say, but those things have a powerful implications, have a powerful effect on what's going on in our spine, because those are things that accrue to our soul. Those are things that we carry with our soul after we leave this physical body into the astral world, and thus into whatever future incarnations we might have. An example of this that really hit home with me about making this kind of a choice is that years ago, somebody shared this financial investment newsletter with me, because they thought it had good analysis and a lot of kind of political and economic analysis. And I always had to laugh at this one, because invariably, no matter what the topic was, the suggestion was to buy gold, which conveniently the author of the newsletter was a gold dealer. Well, you can take that for its own value. But there was this one newsletter that came out, and the whole thing, it was like 15 or 20 pages of why we should distrust China and why we should distrust the Chinese, and just reason after reason after reason, and of course buy gold at the end of it. But when I was reading that, I realized that, I had a choice here. That if I chose to distrust, if I chose to strengthen the distrust in myself, and even if it to like save my life or to somehow protect my assets, the problem with that is that because I encouraged that consciousness of distrust in myself, I would carry that forward into future incarnations. And naturally then, if I was to reincarnate on this or some other planet, I would do so in an environment that resonated with that distrust. And I thought, well, but if I flip it around and if I trust instead and choose to trust instead of distrust, even if it cost me my life, even if it cost me my financial assets and my well-being, what I carry forward with me is that trust, and that will take me to a place where that trust resonates with the outer environment, again, on this or some other planet in a future incarnation. And with that, it's like, okay, clearly I'm going to choose to trust rather than choose to distrust. And that's what that line, worldly ambitions defy, often on earth things of great worth, is really helping us make those choices, not only to be happy, but to choose the higher roads in the higher consciousness now. So really, again, we may despair over all our burdens and the challenges that we face, but we don't always know or understand what lies beneath the surface. And what helps us is this kind of higher perspective. And that's, again, what true friends can really bring to us, including one's guru, of course. Sometimes a friend helps us ascend up from life's cares to the sky. True spiritual friendship is what keeps you focused on what really matters. Again, what accrues to the soul, what's going to uplift consciousness. And to uplift others out of their petty preoccupations and the details that we struggle with so often is what true spiritual service is all about. And it's the role of a true guru, and it's also what matters in a community like a spiritual community like Ananda. And I often have to remind myself that living in an environment like this, that I can easily take for granted that my interactions with everybody else in the community are really coming from that higher place, rather than the normal meannesses and selfishness that we encounter out in the world. Now with this song we have finally the closing lines. Love is a star, though shining afar, it can guide us and help us toward light to draw nigh. Earlier again we talked about love as a word that describes God, so we don't have to use the word God and can make the song more accessible to people. But then we have love here is a star. Love is a star. That's a very impersonal statement as well, and implies the star of the spiritual eye, talking about everything in the spine. We have love as a star here. In this sense, it's not an experience or an emotion at all. It's again a consciousness in the consciousness of God. And by opening yourself to that idea of love, you open yourself to the magnetism of God's love here at the spiritual eye, no matter what you want to call it. And opening to that magnetism then naturally draws energy up the spine. And we have that line, love is a star, though shining afar. If you take the perspectives of the different centers in the spine, the medulla being close, but going gradually down the spine, the spiritual eye is what you might say farther and farther away, some distance from wherever those centers are. But nonetheless, it's shining afar, and it guides the spinal centers, guides all the energies in our bodies, all the energy in our consciousness, guides them up, helps us toward light to draw nigh. And of course, light is another aspect of God. This magnetic guidance then toward light implies lightness, which counters again the consciousness of earnestness as well as just heaviness, as I noted earlier, and again, worry and anxiety. And such a downward flows of energy, if you were to reverse that kind of upward magnetism and look at it going in reverse, that gives you the consciousness of separation and isolation, which leads to loneliness. And this is the quality that Kriyananda assigns this song to in Day 9 of Secrets of Emotional Healing. And he writes simply that the secret of overcoming loneliness is to practice the presence of God and share with Him every thought, every feeling, and every action. So again, seek the companionship of God, the friend of all friends. Open to His love and joy, and in that, open also to the love and joy flowing from God through the friendship in others. Let's now enjoy the recording once again and try to feel especially that presence of God and that friendship deep within your own spine.
Life is a dream, time like a stream, carries free from all care, like birds of the air, soar above griefs and worries, seek joy and be gay. Often on earth, things of great worth, worldly ambitions defy. Sometimes a friend helps us ascend up from life's cares to the sky.